Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and it's Christmas, or at least it is when I'm posting this. So Merry Christmas, unless you're watching this on a different day, in which case, heck, I'm in a giving mood. Merry Christmas anyways. Today we're continuing this channel's tradition of doing these more kind of laid-back videos around Christmas time. I've done some before where I've talked about old phones I've owned, video game consoles, so I'll link those in the description below if you're curious. Today we're gonna do something just a little bit different. Back in 2018, I did a couple videos that really took off for me. One was the worst iPhone ever, and one was the best iPhone ever. This video is going to be similar, but it's going to be a tier list. So we're going to basically grade every single iPhone that's ever existed. Not only is it going to be a little bit more up to date, but it's also going to be a bit more based on my opinion versus back then I actually had votes. This isn't going to be super in depth. I'm just going to kind of go and we'll see where things end up. And what's really fun about this is I've actually made a template so you can follow along if you'd want or make your own. Link is in the description. It's all web-based, whereas I'm doing mine here on Photoshop. And if you want to share your tier list with me and others, Discord's the best place to do that. So join our Discord, link is also in the description. And you can use the channel today's video to post your tier list, so we'll have them all in there. Ideally a screenshot. I'm really curious what people come up with, so definitely come join us over there. Also, if you want to keep up with me or give me a cool Christmas gift, you could go follow me over on my social media at 91_tech. I only post the most intelligent and relevant things on Twitter, trust me. On Instagram, I post cute pictures of my dog sometimes. I also have a TikTok page. I haven't even really formally announced this, but I do. I've been working with an editor who's been taking my videos and kind of cutting them up into these 1-minute videos, and they're really entertaining to me. So if you want to see those, at 91_tech on TikTok. Yeah, I never thought I'd say those words, but here we are. Truly, Christmas brings out the worst in us. Okay, let's stop beating around the bush and get into this. I'm sure I'll make quite a few people angry, and I can live with that. You've probably seen a tier list before, but if you haven't, it's extremely simple. Every iPhone gets a letter grade. S is the best, F is bad. All right, so start with the iPhone 2G. So the iPhone 2G is the first iPhone. We called it the 2G because it only did 2G networking versus every other iPhone does 3G or better. So hence 2G. And you can say I'm just straight in Photoshop here. I should actually zoom in a little. Okay, so it's a bit pixelated. That's okay. Quality has never been my strong suit anyways, right? Now, right off the bat, this is a hard one to begin with because for one thing, it's the first iPhone. It revolutionized the world, really. But for another thing, as far as iPhones go, it was kind of mediocre. Please don't hurt me. Like, okay, yeah, it was the first one, but it had 2G networking in a time where 3G was starting to get really big. And it was also really expensive. It initially was $500 for the 4GB model, which only a bit later that year was replaced with an 8GB model at $400. They did have the 8GB model at $600 initially. Not only did it get a $100 price reduction, it also had double the storage. So if you bought a 4GB one right away, you kind of got screwed over. But I mean, you're an early adopter of this newfangled technology. There are going to be some sacrifices. So the iPhone 2G, the durability was really bad, but it was aluminum, which was really cool. It didn't help that people didn't use cases back then so much. This is a tough one because a lot of this is off the top of my head. I'm definitely gonna miss some stuff, but it was the first one of its kind. I think B is fair. Okay, moving on here to the iPhone 3G. This is the 3G. The 16GB model had a white option. This is what it looked like in black, but it's the 3GS. You know, I can put up some B-roll. Basically, the iPhone 3G was practically the same as the 2G, except in a plastic shell. That looks nice in my opinion. It has that curved look still, but it's plastic to get cheaper. That was the whole idea of the 3G, to be more of a budget-friendly device. You went from $499 at the 2G's launch to $2,899 with the iPhone 3G. As the name implies, it had 3G networking, which was the best thing about it. But beyond that, it didn't change a whole lot. The real flaw of this phone, though, is it came on iPhone OS 2, which was fine. It actually had the App Store for the first time, but it got until iOS 4. And iOS 4 on this phone, if you've ever used it, is painful. You think the 4S on iOS 9 is bad? You're right, but the 3G on iOS 4 might just be worse. And I mean, it's because it's basically the first iPhone spec-wise, so Apple kind of shot themselves in the foot there, but for me, it pretty much ruins the phone. Oh yeah, you couldn't have any wallpaper on it either, because it couldn't handle it power-wise. Why did it get iOS 4? D or E? I think I'm gonna put it in E tier for now. I might change these a little bit as we go along. There are worse iPhones, I think, than this, and for the time, it's exactly what Apple needed, to be fair. They needed a cheaper phone, but just looking at it compared to other iPhones, not great. So E tier it is. Okay, next we have the iPhone 3GS. There it is. So the 3GS. I like the 3GS. It's a fun phone. The S stands for spade, and while it looks like the 3G, it's basically made it better in every single way. Yes, my dog is whining in the background. Please ignore her. She's just unhappy because I'm not giving her attention. Don't worry about it. My nose is red because I'm rubbing it. Anyways, I told you this was going to be a laid back video. iPhone 3GS, it got a lot faster faster, a lot faster, and the camera got much better too. It was the first iPhone to be able to record video. Really bad video, but you know, video all the same. For me, the best thing about the 3GS is that it was fast on every single version of iOS that it ran, from iPhone OS 3 all the way to iOS 6. So it actually got a couple extra iOS versions from the 3G. So for that reason, for me, this phone is actually pretty solidly in B tier, believe it or not. The only reason I don't put it higher, because it lasted so well, is just because it still looks like the 3G. Like, it didn't change that much. It's a lot nicer of a device in my opinion. It got a lot better on the inside, but it looks the same on the outside. So, and B tier is like quite good, by the way. That's how I see it. C is like, I don't know if I'd say average, but decent, you know, like it's good. And then D is like, okay, it could be better, but it's okay. E is like, okay, not great. And F is bad. You don't want F. Oh, my dog is making more noise. You know what? I've been waiting to do this. I've been trying to get her to go to sleep because she's been running around all day and she hasn't slept. It's like she knows I'm gonna be filming. We're gonna just let her do her thing and keep going on, even though there's a lot of background noise. But anyway, B tier for the 3GS. Okay, now we get to possibly my favorite iPhone, the iPhone 4. What didn't the iPhone 4 do? The iPhone 4 for the first time brought a premium design, and it brought the Retina display. It brought a significantly better camera. It brought a front-facing camera. It brought Apple's first own chipset, the Apple A4. iOS 4 was a huge jump in software. It was the first one where you could even have wallpapers. iOS 4, iOS 5, iOS 6 all ran fantastically on the iPhone 4. iOS 7, its latest version, didn't. It's not the slowest iPhone on its latest version. It's still better than the 4S on iOS 9 and the 3G on iOS 4, so that's a bit rough. The other bad thing, I almost forgot about this, the people would have torn me apart in the comments, is antenna gate. The iPhone 4's got these antennas. If you would cover, I believe it was the left side one, with your finger while you're on the phone, which is really easy to do, you would drop your call, just like that. Not good. Apple moved the bands on the CDMA models, and the iPhone 4S fixed this. And if you were using a case, I think that pretty much fixed it, but pretty bad oversight on their part, and their first real hit to their reputation. Beyond that, it's a great phone too. So for now, I'm gonna stick it in A tier. I'm leaning towards S tier though. I really am. I don't think I've given enough time to the Retina display. The Retina display was the first time things on your screen, on your smartphone, looked natural. Text wasn't blurry. It was crisp, it was sharp, it was clean. The pixel density was so much higher than anything else on the market. It was the best screen on any smartphone back in 2010, and even 10 years later, the 2020 iPhone SE, same pixel density as the iPhone 4. The iPhone 11, same pixel density as the iPhone 4. It was that good. We're not talking about some kind of improvement like the iPhone 10 jumping to OLED. That was done by Samsung a long time beforehand. This was breaking new ground, and it was making a smartphone almost equivalent to holding something real in your hand. Like if you were reading an article, it looked like it would if it was on a newspaper. The human eye doesn't see a blurry image, it sees words like you would think it would. Retina display was huge, and that alone, even with antenna gate, even with iOS 7, along with all the other things the iPhone 4 brought, I would argue it was the first modern smartphone. When you think about iPhones, this one brought the most to the table, period. I don't think any other iPhone brought more, except for maybe a certain other phone we'll get to. A tier, you know what? No, I'm gonna put it in S for now. I really am. There's only maybe 2 better phones than the iPhone 4 in my opinion from Apple, and we'll get to those. But for now, we're gonna say S tier because it's great. Then you got the iPhone 4S, which was the iPhone 4, but faster. Cola's walking around, by the way, if you hear little skitter scatters. That's her nails on the hardwood. Anyways, the 4S was faster. S stands for speed, but it also brought Siri. S stands for Siri, maybe. iOS 5 was a huge update. The 4S got a bit faster. The A5 was the first dual-core chipset Apple had in a phone. The camera got a lot better. It went to 8 megapixels from 5, and it could record 1080p video too. The camera, honestly, even today, it's not that bad. And what's crazy about the 4S is it not only got iOS 8, of course the 4 got up to iOS 7, it got all the way until iOS 9. And it shouldn't have, but it did. iOS 9 is terribly slow on the 4S, and it kind of sullies an otherwise really good phone. It's the same design as the iPhone 4, but otherwise, it did a lot to improve. Apple did a surprising amount in 1 year, but they didn't change the design, so, you know, some people were skeptical. I did a big video on the 4S just like a few days ago. So iPhone 4S for me is going to be, I'm gonna say A tier. That might be unpopular. I might need to readjust these, we'll see. That might be unpopular with some people. Siri was a really big deal at the time, and I don't know, that camera, I don't think you should undervalue what the 4S brought anyways. Then you got iPhone 5. iPhone 5, I mean, everyone loves the iPhone 5. The design on it was just gorgeous. gorgeous, you know? I love glass. I love the glass phones. I really do. But there wasn't any practical use for it. Wireless charging wasn't a thing yet. So moving to aluminum with the iPhone 5 made a lot of sense. It got taller, the screen got bigger for the first time, moving to a 16:9 aspect ratio. In other words, you know, the normal widescreen that TVs used, but it still fit in your hand. It didn't get any wider, and it was still just about perfect for one-handed use, which of course is something Steve Jobs really liked. This was like the last phone Steve Jobs had a decent amount of input on, and you can tell given what came the next year, things really did change quite significantly. The iPhone 5, I think a lot of people look back on it with rose-tinted glasses. It was better than the iPhone 4S. It had more RAM, so it was faster, but it didn't improve a ton on the inside. It did, but it didn't. It wasn't a huge jump besides the design, really. It did bring Lightning. It also had iOS 6, which is a big reason a lot of people look back on it so fondly, I think. Who doesn't love iOS 6, right? Probably quite a few of you. Whenever I say anything like that, I get comments like, I don't like iOS 6. Well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm gonna offend so many people, but hey, it's Christmas time. You can't be mad at me. All right, I'm putting the 5 in A tier. Is it behind it? It's above the 3GS. We might have to readjust some of the layering. You know what? It's gonna look messy. I can live with that. Maybe you can't, but I can. All right, then we have the iPhone 5C. Technically, the 5S and the 5C came out at the same time, but we'll start with the 5C because it was the lower tier device. The 5C was the last plastic phone ever made by Apple. It was supposed to be a budget device compared to the iPhone 5S, which was more premium and faster and all these things, but the 5C was only $100 less. It also was just an iPhone 5 on the inside, so $100 less for a less premium design with the polycarbonate plastic. It brought more than 2 colors for the first time, which was a big deal. You see Cola back there? Cola's making noise, but overall, the iPhone 5C was a disaster for Apple. It didn't sell as well as they thought it would. Apple had this reputation of being premium, right? And then they come out with a supposedly budget phone that wasn't actually budget, and it was plastic. It just wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good move for them. Much as I love the phone, it's one of my favorite iPhones actually. Like, I used it back when I was around 14, 15. I loved that phone. But despite that, it probably was one of Apple's biggest failures, so to the F tier you go. Down in the trash. Okay. All right, then we've got the iPhone 5S, which came with iOS 7 like the 5C. This was more like the iPhone 5. It had the same general design. It still had the silver, but then you had space gray and gold. So the new gold color was actually a huge deal at the time. People loved it. I loved it. You had Touch ID finally. Gone were the days of putting in your passcode every time you wanted to open your phone if you wanted security. The 5S also kind of just did so many things on the inside. It brought the A7 chipset, which was the first 64-bit chipset in any smartphone, not just an iPhone, any smartphone ever. It was fast, it had a great camera. The 5S was this almost perfect phone. Even if it didn't seem like it at the time, it just seemed like a better iPhone 5, but it did a lot of stuff to set itself up for the future really well. The iPhone 5 got to iOS 10, so did the 5C. The 5S got to iOS 12, and it's not even slow on iOS 12. It's actually half decent. So because of that, 5S is without a doubt in S tier and is quite possibly the best iPhone ever made. Okay, then we have the iPhone 6. For the record, phones with different sizes, I'm just combining them into one single phone. So the iPhone 6 includes the 6 and 6 Plus, the iPhone 12 includes the iPhone 12 and 12 mini, etc. Just for simplicity's sake. Now the iPhone 6, for one, it got bigger. That was the great thing about the iPhone 6. That's why it is the best-selling smartphone of all time by like a ridiculous margin. And this was during the time where Apple kept trying to get thinner and lighter. And so what happened was Bendgate. Of course, everyone knows Bendgate, probably. Bendgate, I mean, these phones bent, basically. It caused a lot of issues down the line, including touch disease, which may not have necessarily correlated with bending, but it did make it more likely. The iPhone 6 was kind of a mess. Apple should not have released a phone in that state, but they did anyways. Might have sold amazingly well for them, but on the inside, it was also pretty close to the 5S in terms of specs, to the point that it runs up to iOS 12, the same as the 5S, and no further. And so because of this, the 2014 smartphone for me goes straight into the F tier. F tier. Yeah, right with the 5C. It's kind of funny, the first 3 phones Apple did after Jobs passed away, 5C, 5S, 6, and 2 of them are F tier, and 1 is S tier for me, quite possibly the best iPhone ever. So that says something. I don't know what it says, but it says something. All right, moving on here. We can't take too long. I've done enough long form content lately. We've got the iPhone 6S. 6S is a great phone. It really is. It was a very solid upgrade. It brought the A9 chipset. It brought more RAM. It brought a much better camera. iOS 9, which didn't run so well on the 4S, but it ran fine on the 6S. It brought 3D touch. Remember that? It had the new rose gold color, which I have, by the way. So the 6S 6S was a really good phone, and the best thing about it is because it was so much faster, it's running iOS 15. It got iOS 13, 14, and now 15, whereas the 2014 6 from 1 year before got stuck on iOS 12. The 6S, honestly, one of the best phones Apple's ever made in terms of longevity, just like the 5S, but it wasn't as innovative as the 5S. It did a lot of things right, but it was also kind of a lot of things Apple probably should have done with the iPhone 6. A spec jump, not necessarily. The 5S was such a big jump, but the aluminum, for one thing, was a lot stronger. It got thicker, but it's way better, so it doesn't really bend. It also brought partial water resistance. It's not official, don't go dunking it in the bathtub or something, but it is better. It's sealed on the inside. The 6S was just a great phone. It brought second gen Touch ID. I forgot about that too. That was way faster. So for me, the 6S is like a perfect example of a B tier smartphone. And I'm realizing here we don't even have a C yet. There's no C phones. We'll see what happens here. We might have to adjust some of this. But the 6S was just, it was good, but it didn't rock the boat. And that's okay. Not every iPhone needs to be this huge innovation-driven smartphone. Speaking of which, next we have the iPhone SE, the first one from 2016. This is not an iPhone 5S. It is not an iPhone 6S, but if they were to have a baby, it probably would be the SE. That's a really weird way to say that the SE is a smaller iPhone 6S. That is basically the same internals. It doesn't have 3D Touch. It has the old Touch ID, but besides that, it's pretty much the same. So iPhone SE still running iOS 15. It came out in early 2016, so a little bit later than the 6S. I did nothing new, and that's okay. It brought a smaller option and a cheaper option to those who either couldn't afford the 6S or liked a smaller phone still, which, to be fair, people still don't always like big phones, and that's totally fine. So the SE1 for me is actually going to be our first C tier. It's a great device, don't get me wrong, but the 6S was the first one to do a lot of the things it did, and it was just a better phone. It had 3D Touch, it was bigger, etc. So the SE1 is like the perfect example of what like an iPhone, I don't want to say should be, because it was kind of like, you know, a different type of launch, but it was just good. It was just good. There's nothing really to complain about per se. Maybe there's a couple things you could complain. I mean, I love complaining. I could probably think of a couple things, but overall, yeah, no, SE1, it's a good phone. It's not amazing, but it didn't need to be. It was a budget phone, budget option, that's great. Next, we have the iPhone 7 coming in late 2016. Oh, this is gonna ruffle some feathers. I'm gonna stick this one in. I keep rubbing my nose, by the way. It's just allergies or something, but that's why my nose gets red. My old videos, my nose was always red, and I got people saying, you look like you've been crying. It's just because I rub my nose because I get allergies, man. Anyways, the iPhone 7, I've got to stick in, oh, this is going to make people mad, E tier for now. Yeah, I know. This probably could be the first D tier, but I'm going to put E tier. It got rid of the headphone jack. That makes me angry. Now, 7 did some good things. The 7 Plus brought the telephoto lens in portrait mode, which was awesome. The phone had water resistance for the first time. The design is gorgeous. I love the 7's design with the aluminum. I don't like all the colors, but the blacks, oh, the black iPhone 7s are just amazing. That matte black is just perfect. And the jet black is really nice too. It's like a glossy black. I've never had one, but I have footage from like 2017 taken in the snow or something. I don't quite remember, but you can see it here. Anyways, the iPhone 7 for me, the biggest issue is it's tough because Apple removed the headphone jack for pretty much no reason. They did it to sell their AirPods more than anything else, and they caused this industry-wide cascade of everyone else eventually doing it, even Samsung eventually. And they said it was for water resistance. Samsung had water resistance for years with headphone jacks. It wasn't for water resistance. They did it to sell AirPods. For me, the 7 that kind of just soured it. The thing is, it's not really as bad as the 3G because it's fast. It also had the capacitive home button, which I actually like quite a bit. Some people like the physical. I think this is better because less moving parts means less breakable parts. 7 also aluminum's the last fragile iPhone, really. Okay, I'm gonna bump it up to D tier. Actually, I've talked myself into it. Portrait mode. Portrait mode bumps it up for me, I think. Got a bit of an issue here. We've got the SE1 covering it. Now, I could fix that, but it might bug someone, so I'm just gonna leave it instead. Okay. All right. Now we're going to 2017. So 2017, we had 2 phones, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus and the iPhone 10. Yes, I can count that's actually 3, but again, we're counting the 8 and 8 Plus as one phone. iPhone 8 brought wireless charging. It was glass. It had this nice gold color, kept the aluminum frame, and overall, it was a glass iPhone 7. It was a bit faster, you know, next gen chipset, but otherwise it was a glass iPhone 7. 8 Plus had the second telephoto lens. Fast charging was introduced as well. The thing is what comes next is so far beyond the 8. It makes the 8 look worse. And that's okay. I gotta put it in D tier though. It's a good phone, but it just wasn't anything amazing. People who love home buttons will swear by the 8 Plus because it was the last big home button phone, but it did very little to change from the 7. Besides, it's now glass. So again, maybe unpopular opinion, but I'm going with it, okay? We need to get this done. I'm running out of time. I have to be somewhere soon. Okay, then we have the iPhone 10. iPhone 10, S tier. Do I need to explain this one? It's OLED. It has the full screen design. It has Face ID. It's got the same general design as the iPhone 4. It's curved, but you've got the stainless steel and the white backing. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? The 10 was also just a really innovative phone. The edge-to-edge display was starting to be done around 2017, but Apple, I think, was the first to really do it. I don't want to say the first to really do it right, but they did a great job regardless. I mean, 2018 was the year of the notch, if you remember that. Everyone copied them. Then, of course, you know, the camera sensor on the back was quite good. Great smartphone. One of the best Apple's ever made. The OLED display is gorgeous still. So, yeah, S tier. Not a whole lot else to say there. Okay, now it is 2018. We get the iPhone XR and then the XS and XS Max. The XR was the iPhone 5C reborn. You know, that was something everyone was asking for, right? No, the XR was a great phone, actually. It was the iPhone XS, but with an LCD panel. It was better in battery life. I think it was $750 versus $1,000 for the XS. So a pretty decent price reduction for a phone that had all the same specs, except it had one camera lens. That was pretty much the big difference. So it basically was the iPhone 5C done right, which I think I did a video on that years ago. I cannot attest to the quality of it. I do not remember, but the XR was a good phone. The screen resolution was that of the iPhone 8, or the pixel density was anyways, not the 8 Plus, which was 1080p. And so of course that sparked a lot of controversy, including my most disliked video ever. Not that you would ever be able to see that because YouTube got rid of it. I can say whatever I want. You guys can't do anything about it except leave hate-filled comments and make me hurt inside. But besides that, you can't hurt me. Yeah, no, XR is a solid phone. The colors were great. I think it set a really good precedent for Apple. It worked. It was their best-selling phone of the year. I'm sure it outsold the XS significantly, and they've been doing a similar kind of phone every year since. So the XR for me is a solid C tier. Then you have the iPhone XS, which I bought at launch, by the way. Same as the iPhone 10. I bought that one at launch as well. The XS was disappointing for me because it was the 10. They had a max size now. They had the bigger size, which they maybe should have had in 2017, but regardless, they had it now. Besides that, it got a little faster. The camera got a little better, just the typical stuff we see year over year. Yes, it was a much bigger deal back in around 2010, 2011, but you know, a decade onwards, not so much. The iPhone XS also didn't improve battery life. It was my least favorite thing about the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10 died fairly quickly. It had a very high-powered display. It was a small phone, and battery life did not last very long. So for me, the XS was kind of a disaster. So my personal bias is going into this because I didn't have a great experience with it, and there were good things about it. The A12 was nice, the gold color was nice, but overall, the XS for me was just a huge disappointment. And you'll notice it's a trend, right, with these amazing phones. Most of the time, the phone that comes after, barely any changes because they made such a big jump the year before. The 4S is maybe an exception, but they did have a 1.5 break instead of just 1 year. But the 5S and then the 6, which was hardly better, just bigger. The 10, the XS, which was hardly better, just bigger with the XS Max. So XS solidly in E tier. That'll ruffle some feathers because I know for sure there's gonna be people using a XS right now, but hey, you know, it's my opinion, man. Make your own tier list. You can do that. Remember, it's in the description. Okay, 2019, we have the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 is the XR, except with slightly different colors, and it's messing with the white balance. It's kind of funny, hey? Does it think it's white? Look, I'm green. If I lower it here, it'll probably readjust again to make me very pale, which is very real. Yeah, now I'm super white again. Anyways, going back to green Josh, Hulk Josh, the 11 was, oh my gosh, it really is green, isn't it? I don't know why that's getting me so good. Anyways, it was the iPhone XR, slightly different colors, slightly faster, extra camera lens for ultra wide specifically. It was a good phone. It was solid. I would have liked to see OLED. Maybe that's being a bit picky, but it did get cheaper. It went from $750 to $700 now, so that was pretty cool. So for me, this is going to be solidly in. It's just, well, no, I would compare it. I would say it's a step above. I really have no complaints with the iPhone 11. I think it was about where I needed to be. So there we go. C tier. All right, iPhone 11 Pro. I really liked this phone. I really liked the 11 Pro. It was faster, of course, blah, blah, blah. It had a slightly different design. We've got that more matte fogged glass finish, which I just love. I'm glad they're still using it. It's the last curved iPhone. It's slightly smaller than the newest Max phones. So this is the 11 Pro Max, and then the regular 11 Pro is a bit smaller than the current 13 Pro. I like the 11 Pro, and the reason I like it so much is, I mean, the design was nice for sure, and the camera setup's great. So I had the 3, which looked a little goofy at first, and there was the standard Apple logo, which not everyone was a fan of. I thought it was okay, but battery life was so much better. If I can find it here, I think it was like a 4-hour jump over the 10s or something. For me, the battery life was amazing. I could go multiple days without a charge, and I use my phone a lot. I've also kind of underplayed the camera here. The camera was an absurd upgrade over the iPhone XS. Both it and the regular 11 got night photos finally, and so it took some fantastic pictures. But where does it compare to every other iPhone in terms of the tier list? It's not totally fair to compare newer phones with older ones because we don't know how they're going to run in the future. They might be slower on their latest versions of iOS once they finally get retired, but hey, maybe we'll make another tier list in 5 years. All right, so the 11 Pro for me is solidly going in B tier. Yep, that's right. I think it's on the level of 3GS 6S. Yeah, I would say so. Like, just a solid upgrade, but it didn't rock the boat, and that's okay. It didn't need to every year. It had much better camera and battery life. That for me is enough. And it was green, which I don't mind. I liked it. I mean, I got the green. I thought it was cool, okay? All right, folks, we're getting to the end here. It's almost 2020. No, it is 2020. We have the SC2 to talk about. I know what I'm talking about. The SC2 came out in earlier 2020. You remember that year? Yeah, that year happened. Yeah, the iPhone SE2. So, I mean, they don't really call it that, but it is. It's the 2nd Gen SE. It came out in 2020. And it's an iPhone 8, but it's got the speeds of the 11 Pro, pretty much, or 11. The camera's the same as the iPhone 8. It's the same sensor. It just has better hardware inside, so the photo quality is roughly on par with the 10R. Don't quote me on that. Or do, actually. Quote me for everything. That would be kind of just fun. Just ignore me. I'm in a mood today. So the SE2. This will probably be another unpopular opinion. I was a big fan of this phone when it came out. I thought for $400, this was a tremendous deal. It was a tremendous deal, okay? It was the best deal. The art of the deal, if you will. So many people angered. I am gonna get just everyone mad. I love the red color. That was on the 8, but still. The problem is not the camera. The speeds are fantastic. The problem for me is that it has the same battery as the iPhone 8. So the battery life on here is not good. It's just not good. And the iPhone SE2 right now is still $400. That's just not a good deal when the iPhone 11 is $500. It's only $100 more. Why would you buy an SE right now? If it was $200, I'd say it's a decent deal. $300, I'd still be on the fence, quite frankly. So that's my biggest issue with it. I liked it at first, but right now it's just not good value. I'm gonna stick this. Okay, well, in that case, we're going E tier. It's gonna be booze wherever I put it. Yeah, E tier it is. Sorry, guys. Okay, continuing 2020, we've got the 12 and 12 Pro. Let me just move on here. This is the first time we've run into a phone that I don't have. I have every iPhone except for the 12 Pro and the regular 13. I don't have that one yet, but I have the 12. So this was the first time since the iPhone 10, I bought the non-best iPhone at the time. Non-best, it works. I got the 12 instead of the 12 Pro because the 12 brought an OLED display to the cheaper model for the first time, and that was a big deal. They went to the flat design like the 5, 5S and so on, and the iPhone 12 also brought a smaller size option, which is fantastic with the 12 mini. That's great for those who like small phones. I'm so glad Apple actually included them. It's a solid phone, a good upgrade. If it had not been OLED, if it had been like the 10R and 11 again, it would have been a solid D or E tier for me, but because they did give it OLED finally, going straight into C tier, right along with the other good phones. No, C tier is good, okay, C tier is good. Then the 12 Pro. The 12 Pro is harder for me to judge because I didn't own it. Still don't own it. I do love that blue though. The 12 Pro is a more refined 11 Pro. They took the design and flattened the edges so it looks a little bit nicer. It got a bit faster, the camera got better, it brought LiDAR for me personally. And again, haven't used the phone, so I'm not the best judge. I think D tier is about right for it just because it didn't bring a ton. It brought the LiDAR, but besides that, it was quite similar. For me, the big thing about this phone, the reason I didn't get the 12 Pro, there was no ProMotion, no $100 120 hertz. I really wanted 120 hertz. I'm now noticing here, I wonder how many people that bugged. It's kind of like behind the 12. Just peeking out there. Yeah, no ProMotion. Basically every major smartphone had 120 hertz at this point on their displays, and Apple didn't. And that for me was hugely disappointing. That's gonna be D tier. Yeah, sorry guys. But that leaves 2021. That was a year as well. So iPhone 13, which I don't have. You can tell it's different from the 12 because if you look really closely, the camera lenses are now diagonal instead of vertical. You gotta be really intelligent to pick up on that though. I'm gonna say D tier. I don't have a 13, so maybe I'm not the best judge, but it didn't change a lot over the iPhone 12, right? It doesn't have ProMotion, which the 13 Pro does. Spoiler alert. The notch got a little bit smaller, so iPhone 13 just didn't bring a lot. D is, you know, it's the okay tier. I don't know if I'd say it's average. Somewhere between C and D is probably average, but it seems like it's a decent phone. I haven't seen a lot of complaints about it. I just haven't seen people jumping for joy over it either, which might not be the best indicator of a good phone. I feel like it'd have to be pretty darn good to be jumping for joy, but I would say I was doing that for the iPhone 10. I was really excited when I got it. Okay, 13 Pro. I have this phone, yeah. So going to this phone, I can't go back. I can't go back to any other iPhone. Why? It has 120 hertz. Finally, it has ProMotion, and ProMotion is fantastic. It has all the improvements of the 11 Pro, the 12 Pro, everything combined, plus the newer things. Fantastic battery life. We're talking just amazing battery life. And I have the smaller one, not the Max, by the way. Ooh, I don't know about this one. I am so torn right now. Can I say B+? Is that cheat? I feel like that's cheating. It's gotta be one or the other, right? I might regret this later, but I'm gonna say A tier. I am, because for me, the ProMotion is just such a big difference in the experience. As like an enthusiast, someone who really enjoys using their phone and, you know, makes a living by talking about phones and other tech, but mostly phones if we're being real here. I can't go back, you know? And yes, it's something Android's had for a long time. Apple should have had it before, and that's why the 12 Pro is in D tier. But it's also something that I absolutely love, and I feel like iOS has done really, really well. They optimize it properly. When you're not doing anything, it turns down the refresh rate to save battery life. It's just been unbelievable for me. It's so good. It's such a good phone. And it should be, you know, for well over $1,000 for me. I'm in Canada, so it's very expensive. Very few complaints, if any. I don't think I have any complaints I can think of. It's just so good. It's just such a solid phone. And yeah, that's the tier list. I think we're about done. We could probably make it look a little prettier, but I don't know if I want to. I like bugging people. Not very well organized. The 6 for some reason seems to be bigger than the other ones. I'm too lazy to do this, maybe later. But yeah, that's the tier list. We're done. Wow, that's a lot of iPhones. I think that is all of them, right? Am I crazy? Tell me if I'm crazy. Tell me. Why aren't you answering me? I'm just kidding, you're crazy if you answer. This was a lot of fun. I didn't expect to have so much fun just talking to a camera and trying to figure out where iPhones go. I had some notes written down, I referred to them like once. So this was pretty much all off the top of my head. Disagree with me? Agree with me? Let me know in the comments down below, and make your own tier list. Send it to me on the Discord. It's Christmas today, not when I'm filming this, but it's Christmas when I'm posting this, which is awesome. So, you know, happy Christmas, Merry Holidays. I hope you're having a great time, whatever you're celebrating. If you took time out of your day to watch me, that's amazing. Whether it is Christmas or any other day, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Maybe go follow me on social media, including TikTok. I do have merch, by the way, if you haven't noticed yet. Yeah, this one's pretty cool. It's got a bit of the VHS effect, but it's subtle. I really like it. Yes, I'm plugging my merch on Christmas. That feels weird. It's important to remember the true meaning of Christmas. Selling merch. No. Present. No, that's not right either. Yeah, anyways, I think we're gonna end it here. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I offended you today. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time. I almost forgot for Cola to say Happy Christmas. This is where she was when I was filming. There's her bed, which she totally ignored. She pulled off her little mattress thingy. And yeah, there's my setup with all the phones over there. And there she is, stretching. This is a torn up Amazon box that I gave for her for Christmas. No, she loves like boxes and stuff, just chewing them up. So anyways, yeah. Okay. That's cool then. Thought I'd show her off. She's so cute. I've had her a whole year now, believe it or not. I got her just before Christmas 2020. So she turned 1 October 24th, which is insane. That's, yeah. Say bye, Cola. Say Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. That's all from me. I'm Josh from 91 Tech. This is Cola from 91 Tech. And we will see you all next time.